Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering College Association panics as female athletes file lawsuit over trans policies. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. This is a massive lawsuit, and it was a long time coming. From the Daily Mail, Riley Gaines is among 16 female athletes suing the NCAA for allowing trans competitors in sport after Leah Thomas disrobed in front of non-consenting college women. From National Review, female swimmers sue NCAA over male competition, demand return of trophies, and monetary damages. And this had already been out there. From the Daily Mail, trans swimmer Leah Thomas sues to overturn strict new rules that prevent Thomas from competing against biological female athletes, enacted after Thomas sparked outrage and hopes to take part in Paris Olympics. From the Daily Mail, Riley Gaines among 16 female athletes suing the NCAA. The lawsuit centers around Leah Thomas, the trans person who won the 2022 NCAA swimming championships. It asks the governing body to change its rules to render biological males ineligible to compete against female athletes. Women's rights activist and former college swimmer Riley Gaines is among 16 female athletes who have filed a lawsuit against the National Collegiate Athletics Association. It's official. Gaines posted on Twitter on Thursday. "I'm suing the NCAA along with 15 other collegiate athletes who've lost out on titles, records, and roster spots to men posing as women. The NCAA continues to explicitly violate the federal civil rights law of Title IX. About time someone did something about it." The federal lawsuit, the first of its kind, centers around Leah Thomas, the trans athlete who won the 2022 NCAA swimming championships as a student at the University of Pennsylvania, as reported by the Free Press. The lawsuit claims Thomas's win and participation in the event represented a violation of Title IX, which gives women the right to equal opportunity in sports. Thomas competed as a man as recently as 2019, and Thomas's rankings greatly improved following gender transition. Thomas was ranked 65th when competing in the same category, the 500-yard freestyle, as a male, leading to outrage from activists and female swimmers. 3 months after Thomas's win, World Aquatics implemented a ban on transgender women. U.S. Swimming by that time had already introduced strict transgender regulations in March 2022, which critics said stopped short of a ban. However, the NCAA continues allowing transgender athletes in women's sports. The suit asked the NCAA to change its rules to render biological males ineligible to compete against female athletes, and that it revoke all awards handed to trans athletes in women's competitions and give them to their female contenders. Moreover, the suit demands damages for pain and suffering, mental and emotional distress, suffering and anxiety, expense costs, and other damages due to the defendant's wrongful conduct. The legal counsel was organized by the Independent Council on Women's Sports and filed in Georgia, where the 2022 NCAA championships took place. Other plaintiffs include former North Carolina State swimmer Kylie Allons, current Virginia Tech swimmer Rika Gyergy, and Caitlin Wheeler, who swam for the University of Kentucky, as did Gaines. Allons told the Free Press she was so uncomfortable with Thomas using the women's locker room that she began changing in a storage closet. Quote, "I was literally racing U.S. and Olympic gold medalists, and I was changing in a storage closet at this elite level meet," she said. The suit accuses the NCAA of violating the 14th Amendment by destroying female safe spaces in women's locker rooms. Well, they really did do that. The plaintiffs claim the association is allowing naked men possessing full male genitalia to disrobe in front of non-consenting college women, thus creating situations in which unwilling female college athletes unwittingly or reluctantly expose their unclad bodies to males, subjecting women to a loss of their constitutional right to bodily privacy. Wheeler also spoke about the anxiety she felt when she had to share a locker room with Thomas. Quote, "Never in my 18-year career had I seen a man changing in the locker rooms. I immediately felt the need to cover myself," she said. "I could feel the discomfort of the other girls in there." The lawsuit comes after Thomas secretly mounted their own legal fight to overturn a decision that bans Thomas from competing against biological females in elite-level athletics. Last year, after Thomas won the NCAA title, World Aquatics banned those who have undergone any part of male puberty from the women's category. The ban includes the Olympics and World Championships and was enacted in response to the fury sparked by Thomas's smashing biological female competition, which triggered claims of unfairness. World Aquatics told The Telegraph, The World Aquatics policy on gender inclusion, adopted by World Aquatics in June 2022, was rigorously developed on the basis of advice from leading medical and legal experts and in careful consultation with athletes. World Aquatics remains confident that its gender inclusion policy represents a fair approach and remains absolutely determined to protect women's sport. Riley Gaines and the rest of the ladies, though, aren't having it. They are suing. But what about Leah Thomas's lawsuit? From thedailymail.com, trans swimmer Leah Thomas sues to overturn strict new rules that prevent Thomas from competing against biological female athletes enacted after Thomas sparked outrage and hopes to take part in Paris Olympics. World Aquatics banned transgender women after Thomas won an NCAA title. Transgender swimmer Leah Thomas has secretly mounted a legal fight to overturn a decision that bans Thomas from competing against biological females in elite-level athletics. Thomas has hired a Canadian law firm to do Thomas's bidding at the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Switzerland, as reported by The Telegraph. Last year, after Thomas won an NCAA title, World Aquatics banned those who have undergone any part of male puberty from the women's category. Thomas, who has not competed since 2022, is so optimistic about his chances he hopes to compete in the Paris Olympics, it's believed. However, his case is unlikely to be heard before the Summer Games begin on July 26th. Thomas became the first openly transgender person to win a National Collegiate Athletic Association Division I title. Thomas reportedly went to CAS court in September before World Aquatics applied to have the case dismissed because Thomas has not submitted himself to the jurisdiction of USA Swimming. Under previous rules, transgender women could compete in the female category at the international level as long as their testosterone levels were below 5 nanomoles per liter over a 1-year period. In January 2023, World Athletics announced they wanted to tighten their policy but said their preferred option was to only reduce testosterone levels to 2.5 per liter and increase the transition period to 2 years. That led to a huge backlash from female athletes and women's rights campaigners who wanted a blanket ban on transgender athletes competing against other women. They argued that even with lowered testosterone levels, trans female athletes still possess an inherent biological advantage that makes competing against them unfair. Following the backlash, World Athletics Council members admitted there was little support for their original stance during a consultation period. The decision by World Athletics followed that of a swimming world's governing body, who previously announced the ban on transgender athletes from competing in elite women's races. Last year, World Aquatics said they would set up an open category that will include transgender competitors. That also proved controversial. Women's rights campaigners welcomed it, but the transgender rights activists branded it discriminatory. Quote, "This is a very complex topic," the organization's president, Hussein Al-Masalam, said at the World Aquatics Congress. "But I'm delighted to tell you today that we are now making plans for the first trial of an open category, and we hope to be able to confirm all the details soon. Our sport must be open to everybody," he said. Thomas became a leading symbol of transgender athletes, stirring both opposition and support, when Thomas joined the University of Pennsylvania's women's swim team after competing for 3 years on the men's squad at the Ivy League school. I can't even imagine what it would be like to have a daughter who's been training basically her whole life, be a competitive female athlete, and then to have them lose in such an embarrassing and ridiculous way as to have to compete with someone who's a biological male. What's great about this lawsuit is at least it gets in front of the courts, and if everything goes well, the courts will make a decision on what's fair for female athletes. But you can't create a situation to protect a minority of a minority of a minority at the expense of all female athletes in competitive sports. Now, just a few weeks ago, Riley Gaines said she thought the Supreme Court would fix this problem. They would kill college transgender sports. From Newsweek, Supreme Court could kill college transgender sports. Riley Gaines, a former NCAA athlete turned political campaigner, has expressed confidence the Supreme Court will end up ruling against transgender women being allowed to compete in women's sport in school and college in a Title IX case. In 2022, Gaines, then a student and college swimmer at the University of Kentucky, tied with transgender athlete Leah Thomas in a 200-yard NCAA freestyle championship. Thomas, who Gaines regards as a biological male, also won the 500-yard NCAA freestyle competition, making Thomas the first trans athlete to win a Division I national championship. Title IX, which outlaws discrimination based on sex at any school or educational facility which receives federal funding, was passed into law as part of the Educational Amendments of 1972. Speaking to Newsweek, Gaines said she expects justices on the Supreme Court will do not just the right thing and the fair thing, but the moral thing, and argued this means prohibiting transgender participation in women's university sport. In January, the Supreme Court declined to hear a Title IX case from Indiana when it was asked to review a federal court ruling which concluded a trans student has the right to use the restroom corresponding with their gender identity against the wishes of the local school district. The court also decided in April 2023 it wouldn't take up a case from West Virginia from authorities wanting to uphold a state law banning trans athletes from women's sports in public schools, which was initially challenged by a 12-year-old named Becky Pepper Jackson. Gaines admitted she'd been kind of stung by the West Virginia case and wondered what is the Supreme Court doing? However, she was assured that it didn't mean the court was siding with the other side, rather that they didn't have the capacity to take it up at the time. She's hopeful that a Title IX case will end up before the Supreme Court, singling out the lawsuit brought by 4 track and field runners, including sprinter Chelsea Mitchell, in Connecticut after they were required to compete against trans athletes. The group claimed they'd been denied medals, placements, or advancement opportunities because of the male athletes competing in our events. Gaines said there's a couple of big cases that I'm excited for, which will probably make it up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has never heard a Title IX case. It would be huge. Referencing the Connecticut case, the former college swimmer added, I'm very hopeful this case in particular will be heard by the Supreme Court, which will be the first ruling we have on a Title IX case, which is huge right now considering what the Biden administration is doing to Title IX, which is a totally illegal administrative rewrite. I think to get it into the Supreme Court would be monumental, and I'm looking forward to it. Title IX states, no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. Referring to a number of ongoing cases, Gaines commented, what's going on and what has continued to go on across the nation, what I went through, what those girls in Connecticut went through, the girls in West Virginia, Indiana, Idaho. I believe there's a lawsuit. What these girls continue to go through is an explicit violation of the federal law being Title IX. It's very simple because Title IX is only like 37 words. It's not like it's hard to interpret or understand. It's just being able to define that word sex. We've never struggled to define that word before. So I imagine the justices will do not just the right thing and the fair thing, but the moral thing and what the federal law states as of now. Speaking to Newsweek, Nima Rahmani, a former federal prosecutor and president of West Coast Trial Lawyers, agreed the Supreme Court could end up ruling on a Title IX case related to trans inclusion in women's sport. He said, I wouldn't be surprised if the Supreme Court agrees to hear one of the transgender student cases. This is a highly contentious issue on traditional and social media, and the more conservative justices like Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito have shown little hesitation to jump into the political fray to move the court further to the right. 4 justices generally have to agree to review a lower court decision, so even if a more moderate justice like Chief Justice John Roberts wants to avoid the politicization of the court, the other conservative justices can bypass him and finally set a nationwide standard on the rights of transgender students in bathrooms, sports, and elsewhere. Biological women and girls have rights under Title IX. It's federal law. It's long since been established. When this case gets heard in front of the Supreme Court, which it eventually will, this will all be resolved. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.